All right, hello and welcome to this build guide for the Shred Druid. So this is a significantly updated version of the build. We released a video and of course the max roll guide right before launch on this, and it has changed a lot since then. So this is the video guide to talk about the changes, also supply some gameplay footage which was not in the original one, so that you all can see how it works, how it functions, and see if it's something that you like. So how this build does work, what it does is we apply poison to the enemy, and then we shred through them to use it as a effective poison multiplier. We apply instant poison after we've applied poison on them. There's poisoning on them, they're dotted up, and then we shred through them and it applies instant poison that's multiplied off of the original. So the Blurred Beast gives us up to 180%, excuse me, instant poisoning damage. We can do this multiple times because shredding through them and applying the instant damage does not remove the dot damage. The dot poison damage stays on it. So it's a pretty powerful build, especially in single target when it comes to damage. And it's a really cool general concept, and it's also very fast. So the your wolf just flies through enemies, through packs. You want to dash through them, it's just dashing all over the place. It kind of reminds me a little bit of Raycor's, the Raycor's build in D3. So a very cool concept. Now let's talk about what's changed since the original release of it and up to now. The first thing that happened is rabies had to go. Rabies damage is just really bad, and we're also using wolves to apply it, and they're really bad at applying it. They do apply it, they're mechanically functional as far as they can apply rabies on their own, but they do it intermittently, whenever they feel like it. And they do it with an animation that it feels like forever, and most of the time the enemies just move out of the way before they even do it, because it also has a very, very tiny range. So neither of the wolves were functioning well, nor was rabies functioning well to even keep it without the wolves. They're just bad. It sucks because it's thematically really cool, but it is the way it is. There's nothing we can do about it. I tried everything I could to make it functional and useful, and it's worse than any other option we could use. So that's out. Poison Creeper is still in. It's our primary source of damage. Is very good. However, Poison Creeper can't be used in Grizzly Rage. Grizzly Rage is the way that we maintain Unstoppable, which is a very, very important part of Nightmare Dungeons, and so we have to work around that. Adding other sources of Unstoppable into the build. Currently there's 2 in it. Neither one of them function in werewolf form, so we also can't be in werewolf form nearly as much as we like. We like to be 100% uptime. It's just not possible. Blizzard hasn't made that possible with the way that the design decisions they've made. If rabies were good, then it would be a different story, but it's not. We have to use Poison Creeper, so therefore we have to use other sources of Unstoppable besides Grizzly Rage, so we can't be in werewolf form all the time, and so gear adjustments also had to be made. So that's where we're at now. Build is still good. It's fast. It can do really big single target. In fact, let's go ahead and talk about the pros and cons of it. Very high mobility. You effectively have a movement ability that has no cooldown. It's only reliant on spirit, because Shred can dash quite a ways and it's insanely fast about it. It's also your damage. Has very strong healing because it crits a lot, and crits give us 3% of our health every time, with health scalers on top of it, so it goes even higher than that. It has also has access to Blood Howl, which is a really good heal, and Shred got another 1% heal on top of it every time you use it, so very good healing. It's relatively tanky, not nearly as tanky as we would have wanted it to be if it was full werewolf, but it still has a decent bit of tankiness. It does have high PvP potential. Some other people have been testing that in my chat, getting a pretty good experience out of it because it's got a really good burst window. So can definitely do some PvP with it. The downside is it requires a generator, although it doesn't require it nearly as much in the late game. It requires it more on single target or sustained fights, but generally you can actually get away from the generator, although you're going to want to use it here and there for the damage reduction, and you're going to want to use it to apply vulnerability. So the generator is in the build. It is a part of the rotation. It's very cooldown dependent, all because of Poison Creeper. If Poison Creeper procs consistently, it is very good. The build just really does a lot of damage. If it doesn't, then you have large windows of relatively low damage, so that makes it very cooldown dependent. There's also a melee playstyle, which makes it dangerous inherently, Melee is just more dangerous than range, which is going to limit its pushing capability in higher nightmare dungeons because you're going to get hit. There's nothing you can do about it. You have to literally shred through the entire group of enemies, which is also a CC problem. If you don't have Unstoppable up, you can be in a lot of trouble. The other downside is shred targeting can be challenging. It will sometimes shred where you want it to, and other times it will stand there and just shred either at an enemy, or even I've seen it shred at nothing. I've seen it shred when no one's around. So there's something weird going on there. It's not as smooth as it should be, but when it's working and when you can get it targeting the things you want to, it is absolutely insanely fun. So I do recommend that if you're interested in this build, you give it a shot and see if the targeting wonkiness from time to time is a problem for you, or if you can kind of work around it. Like I said, it's really fun when it's working. And I think if you get a high enough skill level with it, it becomes a lot more consistent. It still has some issues, but it will definitely gets a lot better. So definitely give it a shot if you think that the playstyle is fun, and let me know how you feel about the targeting as well, and if you found anything to make it better, to improve it, to improve the experience of it. Okay, let's get into the skills that we're going to use. So of course we're using Shred. This is a primary skill of the build because it applies the instant poisons through aspect of the Blurred Beast. So we take Enhanced Shred because, well, you have to, but it also gives us a heal to do that, and it makes it faster. And then we take Primal Shred to get all of the dashes. You might think, well, why aren't you taking the poison? Because then you only get 1 out of 3 dashes, and you can't apply Blurred Beast unless you're the instant poison for Blurred Beast unless you're dashing, and so you're cutting your damage by 2/3 by doing that, and also making the build feel a lot weirder. So you definitely need this 100%. No, you cannot take the poison one. Do not do that. You will not have a good time. Okay, next up, Earthen Bulwark is primarily in here for the Unstoppable. It also has a secondary benefit of giving us a shield, forgetting the name of it now, a barrier, which we will be using for damage and also for temerity. Temerity's in our build. This is a good skill, unfortunately not a werewolf skill, but a good skill that also fits in really well with the rotation. Poison Creeper is effectively our primary damage. You apply Poison Creeper, and then you shred through as many times as you can. You do a ton of damage by doing that. It's a very high damage option that also unfortunately has a high cooldown that we have to try to mitigate through other factors. But when you're building for this, we take Enhanced Poison Creeper and then Ferocious Poison Creeper for the active duration, which is effectively a multiplier on the poison damage. Next up, we have Storm Strike. This has a 3-pronged use, so to speak. It's a damage reduction option. It is a vulnerability applicator, which is really important for single target because we're going to run out, even though we're using the exploit glyph, which will apply the first time we do any damage. That's a 20-second cooldown. So this will fill in on single target. And of course, it's a generator, so it gives us our spirit back when we need it, which will happen from time to time. Blood Howl is a great heal, really valuable there. It also gives us some extra crit, which we're going to need the crit to help try to get the cooldown reset on Poison Creeper. And it gives us spirit, which we're going to need all of the time. We're going to be constantly needing more spirit. So this is a really good addition for those reasons. And then we have Trample. Trample is the potentially least necessary, and it could even be replaced by Debilitating Roar in high pushes, as long as you don't have packs doing a lot of CC. The cold enchanted ones are especially bad for this build. Double Unstoppable helps a lot with that, and that's what Trample's in here for. Trample's in here for the double Unstoppable that we get. It also gives us another spirit generator, which is nice too. So that's where Trample is the one that I wish we didn't have in there, but in my experience, having only 1 Unstoppable, having only Earthen Bulwark is just in certain Nightmare dungeons, it's just not enough. And so I went with the double Unstoppable. But Debilitating Roar is a legitimate option that makes you much tankier, and if we could fit this in instead, that would be awesome. I do recommend experimenting with both, seeing how you can handle it, especially if you want to push this into the high nightmares. You might be able to get away with just fishing, or a lot of downtime with anytime Earthen Bulwark's down, just avoid CC packs and might be able to push farther with debilitating roar. I assume you probably can. So those are kind of like the two skills that you can use there. Trample is going to be probably better for most content, and then debilitating roar to do any pushing. Okay, let's talk about the boons. So we've got, of course, we've got our 5 boons. We've got the first one is maximum life for Iron Feather. This is really great heal, as well as, of course, EHP. The more health we have, the larger our heals. So also this helps with temerity. This gives us a larger barrier with temerity, which is a big part of our defense here. It gives us a barrier based upon any overhealing we do, which we do a lot of overhealing. So this gives us additional barrier as well as additional health. So very good boon. Masochist is like must have. Anytime you crit, you do healing. This is a large portion of our healing rotation, along with Blood Howl. This is a big part of it. Wariness, reduced damage from elites, is a no-brainer to me. Side talons for the crit. We need to crit to proc Poison Creeper cooldown, and also Blurred Beast instant poison can crit, so this is a double benefit. Super good. And then Pack Leader, the whole build kind of revolves around trying to reset the cooldown of Poison Creeper, and that's through getting crits on Shred, and then from there hopefully we get the reset. So Pack Leader is a really important part of the build. All right, let's talk about the skill usage and rotation. So typically, this is a typical situation. Start with Earthen Bulwark to create your barrier, to activate your Unstoppable, immediately shred into them to activate your Exploit Glyph, apply your Poison Creeper, Blood Howl for your crit chance, and then start shredding through the enemies. Make sure you're dashing. Don't stand there and shred. You have to dash through them, so you might have to walk away a little bit and then shred into them, walk away, shred in, or look for an enemy that's farther away, that's outside of your melee range, and try to target them, and hopefully Shred will actually do that. And you'll just keep doing this as long as they're alive, as long as there's poisoning on them. Once you run through that rotation, if you need spirit or damage reduction, use Storm Strike, and also you can use it to apply vulnerable on single target or small amounts of targets to keep your vulnerable up. Use Blood Howl on cooldown. If you're going through large packs, it's going to be up all the time because you're going to be killing stuff quickly. Earthen Bulwark and Trample as needed to get out of crowd control effects, so make sure to use that as your unstoppable option. You can also use Trample for some spirit gen, but don't be using it for spirit gen if you're in CC environments. You're going to get screwed if you do that. You definitely need to keep it for unstoppable when you're in those scenarios. Now you can also, as a more advanced thing, instead of using Blood Howl on cooldown, if you're getting hit a lot by a large HP draining attacks, say you Blood Howl for when you take one of those to instantly recover it instead of using your potions. Okay, let's talk about the build scaling on this. What scales it? The vast majority of this is based on poisoning. You poison enemies with the poisoning dot. From there, Blurred Beast, shred through them, dash through them with Shred, apply damage. So everything's going to revolve around increasing the poisoning damage and also trying to crit that to do really large amounts of damage. Invulnerable is also massively important for this build. It should be for just about any build. This is no different. It's an amazing multiplier, and so we're going to try to keep the enemy vulnerable as much as possible. Make sure vulnerable is up before you apply Poison Creeper, or else you'll lose a lot of damage. Defensively, we're built significantly around healing. Temerity is a big part of it because of that. Up to 80% increased HP effectively through a barrier is amazing. We definitely need that. Disobedience allows us to cap our armor, which is huge. Unfortunately, it's only in large packs that we cap it, but this is a really good way of doing it when the fights are most intense. So Aspect of Disobedience is a must-have in this build. We also have Aspect of the Might, which is a damage reduction multiplier with Storm Strike. Use these as much as you can to keep up your damage reduction. In fact, I mentioned in here, this rotation, if you're in higher end content, you'll probably want to also open up with a Storm Strike before you do your Poison Creeper, so that you have damage reduction, and then use this every 3 to 6 seconds through your rotations, just so that you can keep up your damage reduction, because there's a lot of damage reduction in Storm Strike. That's going to be a big important part of your push. Fortify, we get quite a bit of Fortify through the build. Not a massive part of it, but it's a nice little extra. We just mentioned Storm Strike and how important that is, along with the Aspect of the Might. a big part of it. And if you have debilitating roar in there, then that can also be really valuable as well. If you are not using debilitating roar, then you won't have this layer of defense. All right, let's talk about stat priorities. Vulnerable damage is a massive part of our stat priority, along with crit chance, along with cooldown reduction. These are all really important parts of it. So vulnerable damage is a damage multiplier, and any sources of it are additive on top of your vulnerable. So you start with 20. If you get a source of 60, you have 80. That's 80% multiplier. That's massive. So vulnerable damage is huge. We definitely need a lot of it. Anything that applies for poisoned is also really good. Poison damage over time, damage while nearby seems to work with shred, although you start far away and then shred into them. It does seem to work. Cooldown reduction is a huge stat, especially for poison creeper. For the times when you can't get it to proc, it will help a lot, but also for the rest of your skills, it'll make your rotation a lot cleaner, a lot smoother. Willpower is a multiplier, so it's really good. Dexterity adds crits, which is nice. Intelligence is fine, it's whatever. Strength doesn't really do a lot for us except for some armor. We mentioned crit strike chance. We want to get that as high as possible, so we push crit strike chance as much as we can in our gear. This is going to allow us to proc poison creeper a lot more, so a big important part of it. And we also talk about in the gearing section here how we're going to further maximize that by using an aspect that allows us to hit even more often and do more crits. Attack speed has benefits, but it's weaker than the other options. It does help, though. It does make us shred faster. It allows us to apply storm strike faster. So it has some value, but not as much as the rest of the stuff. Focus the other stuff more. As far as your gems, I believe that Royal Ruby is the best option because it helps with your healing as well as your health. It helps with temerity. Royal Sapphire, it can have value if you have high levels of fortify. Anytime you're in fortified, which you need to actually be, your health has to be below your fortify level. So if your fortify level is at 50% of your health, your maximum health, and you're capped out, you're not getting fortified damage reduction. But if you're below half health, you are. So I think this is a weaker option than Royal Ruby, but it's an option. Royal Topaz also can be good to deal with CC. It doesn't get you out of CC, but if you're finding yourself getting stuck in CC a lot, it is a pretty sizable amount of damage reduction. So it might allow you to survive those without Unstoppable. I'm not sure that's the case because you lose all your healing while you're CC'd, but this might be an option for you if you find yourself in a high CC environment and you're trying to push through it. Royal Skulls are, to me, like must take. The amount of armor that you can get with these is huge. It just makes a big difference in making sure this actually needs to be replaced. Iron Claw is not the one here. This is actually be replaced with Defiance. So this multiplies Defiance as well. Helps us to get to cap a lot faster. Royal Skulls are great. Royal Emerald in your weapon, I believe, is better than damage over time. It has a higher number. It's also crit strike damage as a multiplier on the other damage, and we're going to be critting a lot to vulnerable enemies, and Blurred Beast instant poison does crit, so this is really good. As far as elixirs go, Cruelty is your best bet, but you probably won't have many. Fortitude is a really good option here for defense, so Cruelty will help you proc your poison creepers a lot more, and then the damage on Blurred Beast will be a lot higher, or a lot more consistently high as well. Fortitude for the defensive option. If you don't have Cruelty, Precision Elixirs, a okay option. It's certainly not as good as Cruelty, but it's an option. And also Combatant Fortune is a good option for the lucky hit chance increase, but not as good as Cruelty. Incenses, Redamine Buzz, Song of the Mountain, Chorus of War are all good. All right, let's go up and talk about the gear here real quick. We've got as far as legendaries go, the basic damage reduction for basic skills is really good. We just talked about Disobedience, amazing. We got Stampede in here, which is primarily for the multiplicative damage. The added additional companion does give you one more creeper that does extra damage. It's fine on the passive side, but the active side is what really matters. That's what we really want. Temerity is just an awesome HP improvement, so we're taking that. We're taking Ghost Walkers so that we can move freely through enemies, which will help us do our shreds a lot more smoothly. Very good quality of life for this build. Also does help just get out of things, so it's really good for that. Of course, Blurred Beast is in here. That's the whole thing the build's based around. Also, we've got Conceited in here. Anytime we have a barrier, it's a damage multiplier, and we have a barrier almost all the time, thanks to Temerity and thanks to Earth and Bulwark. We have this one's an interesting one. Stormclaw's got into the build. This is not for the damage, although honestly it does help with clear a good bit. This is actually for trying to get additional crits to occur so that we can get additional procs of Poison Creeper, and it does increase the reliability of Poison Creeper substantially. So I think this is a must-have in the build. Night Howlers for the additional crit for 3 seconds. We use Blood Howl right before we're going to go start shredding through stuff, and we'll crit more often. This is the least necessary of the items, but I do think it increases the overall value of the build, or the overall power of the build, a decent bit, especially if you use Blood Howl really strategically, and allows us to proc more Poison Creepers, so it's got a lot of value there. As far as stats that we're looking for in the gear, plus the Poison Creeper is amazing, CDR is amazing, crit chance is amazing, ranks to companion skills are amazing. Call of the Wild's a damage multiplier in the passive tree, getting that to +3 instead of 3, or getting it to 6 instead of 3, goes from 30% to 60% damage multiplier. That's huge. Vulnerable damage, massive. We want that as much as we can, especially on our weapon. Make sure you get vulnerable damage on it. It's just super big. Willpower on your weapon's really good as well. Armor wall and werewolf form on your boots is good. It's not as good as it would have been, but it's still good. So we do want that when we can get it. But that along with disobedience should get you capped in any high density environments. Lucky hit chance, when we can throw it on there, is also helpful. We got a full breakdown here of all the stat priorities as well, so that you can go through, and we have a couple of, well, we don't really have any optionals here. There's not a whole lot of optionals except for Andariel's Visage, which could make for a nice speed farm option, because then you can add additional poison over using Might in the helmet slot. So if you pick this up, could be fun. Lifesteal is also really good in this, will help you top off your barrier. All right, let's see, what else do we have to talk about? I think that's the majority of stuff outside of the Paragon Boards. That's about all that's left here. So let's talk about the Paragon Boards real quick, and then we'll wrap up this video. So the Paragon Boards, the most important actual boards for you are Heightened Malice. This has got a really good, where did I put my Paragon Board? There it is. Heightened Malice has a really good multiplier here. I actually recommend early in the game, before you've set all this up though, to not start with this one. I'll update this at some point in the near future, but start with Ancestral Guidance. Pick this up. Actually, you can pick these up really quickly. Either you can actually keep it like this and it's just fine, but both of these are really good. Ancestral Guidance is going to be a big addition to your ability to regenerate spirit without using your generator constantly, so you can keep just shredding through packs over and over again. Heightened Malice is a massive multiplier for when you're fighting packs, and honestly in this game, fighting packs is about the hardest thing you're going to do on this particular build, so this is a big multiplier to that. The other really big, there we go, make it so it's not red. Oops, sorry, I said Ancestral Guidance here. I meant Lust for Carnage is going to be the one that increases your spirit. So this is really big for spirit restoring on packs, and it's going to allow you to, this along with spirit on kill, which is here, is going to allow you to basically not have to use your generator except for your damage reduction on packs. You can just keep shredding through, and not actually worry about your spirit when you're in large groups. And then Ancestral Guidance is good for both packs and single target. Those are your big legendary nodes. In fact, I think those are the only legendary nodes we take. Yeah, they are. So those are the big ones. The rest of it's all based around what else the board has. We list that all in up here, so you can read all the details of all the different boards that we took and the reasons why outside of the legendaries. But let's talk about the glyphs and what's good about it. This is not in order of priority as far as the best ones. It's in order of where it shows up on the board. So we'll talk really quickly about some of the things I think that are more important. Werewolf is good. It gives you damage reduction while werewolf form. We do spend the majority of time in that, so that's still really good. Anytime we're shredding, we're in werewolf form. Exploit is huge for clear because it applies vulnerable as soon as you do any damage to the target, which is why we shred into the enemies first before we do a poison creeper. So we apply exploit by shredding, apply vulnerability through exploit by shredding, then poison creeper. Now they're vulnerable. Now they take a lot more damage. This allows us to not need to use Storm Strike nearly as much, which is great. Allows us to just do damage a lot quicker and not be standing still using Storm Strike. This is the first glyph I think you should take. The next one you should take is Tracker. Tracker is 33% poison duration. It's awesome. It's amazing. That's a 33% multiplier, so definitely pick this up. The rest of them all here are really good. They're not as important as those two, but they are really good. Or those three: Werewolf with the damage reduction, Bane. We got poison damage. We got 10% chance to double poison. That's nice. It's really good, but it's only 10%. Fang and Claw is really good. Territorial is really good. Not as important as the rest. So those are the 6 that you're going to use. All significant for the build. All make it a lot stronger. Definitely going to increase the power of it over time, as you'd expect from the Paragon board. All right, that's everything. I think we've covered everything. If you have any questions, do feel free to hit me up. I am most easily accessed while streaming. I stream a lot, so if you have questions about the build, I do recommend that is the #1 place to find me. You can hit me up in the comment section too, and there's a decent chance that I'll be able to apply or reply to it. But I am streaming so much that is #1 place to hit me up. Absolutely, come hang out with me, ask me questions. I'm always working on builds. Would be glad to answer any questions that you have. All right, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoy this build. I hope you find it fun. I hope these changes make it cleaner for you and a more enjoyable experience. In the meantime, enjoy your time in Diablo 4, and I will see you all again real soon.